Hey man, there's this quiet game women play, not out of manipulation, but out of self-preservation. See, when a woman starts developing real feelings for you, it doesn't always look like obvious love. It doesn't always sound like I miss you or I want to be with you. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it sounds like mixed signals, because the deeper she feels, the more vulnerable she becomes. And for some women, especially those who've been hurt, betrayed, or led on before, attachment is terrifying. So what do? They hide it. But if you know how to read the subtle signs, you'll realize she's already emotionally attached. She's just too scared to show it. The first sign, she pays attention to the smallest details. Not the things you repeat constantly, but the things you mention once and forget. The snack you like, the song that hits different, that one story you told in passing. If she brings it up weeks later, seemingly out of nowhere, that's not coincidence. That's emotional focus. She's not just hearing you, she's cataloging you. Why? Because her heart is already invested, even if her words haven't caught up yet. Another sign, she gets quiet when you pull away. Not angry, not explosive, just quieter. You might think she's losing interest, but what's really happening is this. She doesn't know how to handle the shift in energy. When you go silent, she doesn't want to seem clingy, so she mirrors you. But behind that silence is a storm of questions. Did I do something wrong? Why is he distant? Is he losing interest? That overthinking is her attachment speaking. And if she didn't care, she wouldn't even notice the change. Watch how she reacts when other women are around you, especially if they're attractive. She might pretend she doesn't notice. She might even act indifferent. But if you look closely, you'll see it. The subtle stiffening of her posture, the quick glance, the energy shift. Maybe she touches you more to re-establish her presence, or maybe she pulls back to protect herself from jealousy. Either way, the moment you see any kind of reaction to female competition, it means she's emotionally invested and she's trying to protect that attachment without revealing it. She asks you hypothetical questions about relationships, but never directly about you two. Stuff like, do you think people can fall in love fast? Or have you ever been with someone who made you feel calm? These questions aren't random, they're her way of testing the water. She wants to talk about love, closeness, connection, but she's too scared to ask how you feel about her, so she wraps it in theory. If you lean in emotionally during those moments, you'll often find she softens, because deep down, she's hoping you'll give her the green light to finally open up. Look at her social media patterns. If she's posting more when she knows you're watching, it's not just coincidence, she's subtly signaling. If she posts a selfie right after you don't reply for a while, or quotes something emotionally vulnerable that feels like it's about you, that's not random. That's her trying to express something, indirectly. She wants you to feel her energy, but she's not ready to say it to your face. That's fear. But it's also attachment trying to find an exit. One of the biggest signs, she gets nervous around you. Not because she's shy, but because she's emotionally exposed. When a woman is truly indifferent, she's relaxed, composed, casual. But when she starts adjusting her hair more, checking her phone to avoid long eye contact, laughing a little too hard at your jokes, it's not performance, it's protection. She's trying to mask her emotions with movement, because the stillness would show everything she's not ready to admit yet. She brings you small gifts or does little favors, but plays them off. She won't call it a gift. She'll say, I saw this and thought of you, or I figured you could use this. Those tiny gestures are not random. They're her way of investing without confessing. When a woman gives to you without being asked, especially emotionally thoughtful things, it's because she's already attached. But she wants to keep it light, so she doesn't spook herself. If she asks about your past relationships, she's not just curious, she's measuring herself. She wants to know what kind of women you've chosen, what you liked, what went wrong, and most importantly, whether or not she's different. That's not small talk. That's her comparing herself to your past. And comparison only comes when there's emotional investment. If she didn't care where she stood with you, she wouldn't even think about the women who came before her. She asks you if you're seeing anyone, not directly, but in ways that dance around the truth. She might say, so are you talking to anyone else? Or you seem like you probably have a lot of girls chasing you. She'll wrap it in humor, sarcasm, or curiosity. But the question isn't casual, it's loaded. She's checking her position. She's trying to confirm if she has you to herself. Because when a woman is truly attached but scared to admit it, she won't stake her claim directly, she'll investigate it quietly, hoping you'll reassure her without forcing her to confess how deeply she cares. She tries to find out how you feel without ever putting herself at risk. She might fish for compliments or emotional signals, saying something like, "You're probably just being nice to me," or "I bet you say that to all the girls." It's not insecurity, it's emotional deflection. She wants to hear you affirm her importance, but she also wants an escape route if you don't. That's what women do when they feel too much but don't feel safe enough to show it. They build emotional exits into their own vulnerability. When she talks about other men, notice how carefully she watches your reaction. She might mention a guy from her past or someone who texted her recently, not to make you jealous, but to see how invested you are. If you flinch, she registers it. If you stay calm, she watches harder. She's already attached, but part of her still wonders, does he feel the same? Will he fight for me if I slip away? These small intentional mentions are her way of pushing the emotional glass to see if it cracks. She doesn't say she misses you, but her behavior screams it. She sends memes at midnight, reaches out by accident, tells you a story just to keep the conversation going. She might frame it as boredom, but boredom doesn't reach for the same person over and over. Attachment does. She's filling silence with your name because that's who she wants to hear from. She might not say, "I've been thinking about you," but every message, every check-in is that exact sentence in disguise. One of the clearest signs, her energy shifts when you're near. Her body language softens. Her voice changes. She slows down. Women are masters at controlling what they say, but their energy always tells the truth. If she's laughing more, finding excuses to touch you, staying longer than she needs to, it's not by accident. That's her nervous system giving her away. An emotional attachment lives in the body before it ever shows up in a text message or a conversation. Sometimes, when she's feeling brave, she'll almost say something real and then pull back. You'll hear it in the way her voice cracks when she says, "I'm glad you're around," or "I don't know why, but I just feel good when I'm with you." But then she'll change the subject, laugh it off, go silent. That's because the truth slipped out. And even if her words ran away, her energy didn't. And if you stay calm during that moment, if you don't rush it, she starts to feel safe enough to bring that truth back when she's ready. She becomes protective over your time, not in a clingy way, but in a way that shows up in small moments. She notices when you cancel plans. She marks the days you're more distant. She even tries to be cool about it, but you can feel the subtle emotional withdrawal. She doesn't just want your time, she values it deeply. And that shift from attraction to emotional concern, that's not casual interest anymore. That's real attachment forming quietly beneath her defenses. You'll notice that she stops talking to other men the same way. She doesn't announce it, she just starts closing the emotional doors elsewhere. Maybe she used to flirt more, entertain more attention. But now, she's more reserved. Not because she's losing options, but because her focus is narrowing, and women only narrow that focus when they're emotionally attached. They'll never say, "I picked you" out loud, but they'll start behaving like they already have. She worries more when she says the wrong thing. She over-apologizes, sends a follow-up message, gets quiet when she thinks she offended you. That hyper-awareness isn't about control, it's about fear of losing emotional connection. She already sees you as someone who matters. And now, the idea of disappointing you or pushing you away carries weight. You don't react, but you see it. And that's when you know she's already all the way in, even if her pride hasn't let her admit it yet. So remember this, man. A woman can be fully attached and still act like she's figuring things out. Not because she's unsure of you, but because she's terrified of being seen too soon, too deeply, too clearly. And if you can stay calm, stay grounded, and lead that emotional space with masculine presence and patience, she will reveal everything. Not because you forced her to, but because she finally feels safe enough to let you see what's been there all along.